Good day, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Hazmat Guys. I'm Bobby Salison, so let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody, to episode 54, and we are the premier podcast dealing with hazmat response for fire responders, where we give you the knowledge and insight to do our jobs safely and effectively. I'm Bobby Salison, and I am here with both Mike Monaco and a very special guest, Dr. Denis Onieal, who is the Deputy Director of the United States Fire Administration. And, we're not going to beat around the bush here. We're just going to get right into it. So thank you for taking a moment of your day to listen in and see what we have to offer.
Well, everybody, we are sitting here with Dr. Onieal on the line, and he is a very important person in our world. He's actually a national figure within our fire service, and I guess it would be better off if I just let him tell us about himself. So, Dr. Onieal, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, Mike. Thanks. I like to refer to myself as the most dangerous man in America. I'm a truckie with an education, a pension, and a civil service job. That kind of puts things in perspective. But I started in the job probably just like everybody else. My dad was in the job when I came home from the Army. Probably 6 or so months after I got home, the application came out for the fire department in Jersey City. And he filled out the application and made me sign it, and he mailed it in. It really wasn't something that interested me. I didn't think that it was something that I was going to be doing for the rest of my life. But fortunately, I got into the right group of firefighters. It was a very busy station in Jersey City, and what are now commonly referred to as the war years. Of course, we didn't know it at the time. And I was assigned to a ladder company. And there were several other veterans in the station, both on my shift and in different shifts, that were attending school on the GI Bill. And so I had that available. And so we used to swap shifts so that we could attend school, and went through and got the bachelor's degree at New Jersey City University. And around the time I graduated, they extended the GI Bill. If you got 36 months of education, but if you had exhausted your 36 months and you still were within the time limits, they gave you another 9 months. So I took that. I didn't cover the whole time, but I covered most of going on for the master's degree. And around the time I finished up the master's degree, I was promoted. Around the time I was finished the bachelor's degree, I was promoted to lieutenant. And I was assigned to a different ladder company in the city. But at that time, the busy area had kind of moved from where I was as a firefighter to where I was going as a lieutenant. So, we still had a lot of firework. And then I was there for a while. And then I was promoted to captain. And around that time, I started a doctorate over at New York University. And just in education, there was no fire degree at that time. And then a couple of years later, I was promoted to battalion chief, then deputy chief. And around that time, I finished the docket at New York University. And then NYU asked me to come back and teach in the doc program in education. And I did that for around 5 years. And then they made me acting chief of the department. The chief had left. They had called for a civil service test, but they hadn't executed that yet. So they made me the chief of the department on an acting basis, and I was offered the opportunity to apply to become the superintendent of the National Fire Academy, and I applied for that job, and I got it. So when they offered me the job, I retired from Jersey City and came down to be the superintendent. And then about a year ago, sadly, my boss had passed away, the deputy fire administrator, Glenn Gaines, and so they asked me to take the job as deputy fire administrator. And so, I guess the story is a truckie did okay in America. That's about it.
It sounds like you're marginally qualified for this. It doesn't.
Yeah, just barely. I just got in under the skin of my teeth.
What is your doctorate in exactly? Fire science, fire studies?
I'm sorry?
What is your doctorate in?
My doctor's in education. The master's degree is public administration, and the bachelor's degree is in fire. So
very nice, very nice. So have you ever been in a situation where somebody needed medical help and yelled out, "Is there a doctor in the room?" And you kind of were like, "Yeah, but I'm not."
Well, coming from the fire department, of course, you get picked on all the time. If you have anything that's a vulnerability, they always pick on you. And of course, they always picked on me for going to school. So I used to tell them that I'm the kind of doctor that doesn't do anybody any good.
Dr. Onieal, if we were sitting here a year from now discussing what kind of a year you've had in your role, what would you tell everybody?
Is this Mike or is this Bobby?
This is Bobby now.
Okay. Bobby, working in the federal government, it's always a challenge, and there's constant changes to which you and your organization must adapt. That was probably even the biggest challenge coming from the fire service into the federal government. And as I said to you before, I was thrust into the deputy's job when my boss, Glenn Gaines, suddenly passed away. So this job really wasn't something that I sought to do. I could have applied for it the last 2 times it was open. I didn't want to do the job. I was very happy at the National Fire Academy. But the reality was that our boss, the United States Fire Administrator, is appointed by the President of the United States. And we're coming into a transition. And without the Deputy Fire Administrator, the organization would be kind of unstable. So when the Fire Administrator came to me, we talked about it. I agreed to move over and up into this job. So more or less to give the organization stability during this time of tremendous change. To be honest with you, somebody's got to be down in headquarters with your strong elbows, making sure that nobody's fooling around with your budget or your table of organization or the number of people. So you're constantly dealing with those kinds of things. But the second advantage was that by moving over to this job, we created a vacancy in the superintendent's ranks. And so we're in the process now, the final stages actually, of hiring that superintendent. And I'm going to be here to mentor that person along with the deputy superintendent of the fire academy, mentor that person, for however long it takes, which again will add stability to the organization. So hopefully that they're going to be on board before long. Overall, when you're in these kinds of positions, you have to remember that I use the term, you're trying to manage in a democracy, which means that you have to consider very, very wide differing points of view. New York City has a different opinion about things than Honolulu. Nome, Alaska has a different opinion than Miami, Florida. And of course, you really can't do everything that everybody wants. But you do have to listen. You have to consider things. You have to understand that the volunteer fire service in, some small community in Arizona is quite a bit different than Chicago. But, fundamentally, the issues that they're facing are the same. Right. So you have to converse, you have to listen, but mostly listen. And, I joke a little bit. It's probably not a prudent thing to joke on a public radio station, but
it's okay. Nobody listens.
I tell people that I really don't know how to do my job, but fortunately for me, everyone in America does, and they tell me with great regularity. It's kind of like being the chief of the department. Everybody knows how to be the chief. So those are the kinds of year that I've had, and going into, of course, the November election and the January inauguration of the new president, the federal government is very concerned about the transition and making sure that it's smooth, that we do everything we can to help the new political appointees be successful in their jobs, to clean up any problems that we don't want them to have to deal with before they get into office. You don't want to have them come into the job and have to deal with 9,000 different crises. You just want them to get their feet on the ground first. So you want them to be successful. So
yeah, Well, you know what? I am available for that spot. Thank you for asking.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Let me put your name down. Don't give me your Social Security number over the air, but yeah. Get in line. You have to get in line.
Oh, my God.
You were saying that there's a tremendous amount of difference between, New York and Alaska and all this. Do you see that on both the fire side and a hazmat side?
And not only do I see it on the fire side and the hazmat side, the career side and the volunteer side, but I've been quite a few places around the world, and I'm being very truthful here. This is not a tongue-in-cheek observation. There are probably about 8 personality types in every fire station in the United States and in China and in Australia and in New Zealand and in Moscow. The firefighters just seem to be. They just, you always have the one that's the curmudgeon that doesn't believe anything. You always have the great cook. You always have the comedian.
Yep.
You always have the guy or gal that's studying, and no matter where you go, it's the same. It's amazing.
It's same clowns, different circus.
So
Exactly.
Of all those different role models that are out there, or people that are out there, who would you say is your role model? Like, who would you look up to as you were going through the ranks, and even now? And has your role model changed at all?
This is Mike?
Yes, this is Mike. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Mike, I've always found that it was always probably a good idea to have several role models, not just one. You needed a professional role model. You needed probably a contemporary role model, somebody that you're a contemporary with who's doing things that you should be doing. You need somebody, kind of an aspirational role model, maybe somebody that that is a step or two ahead of you. Perhaps maybe a marriage mentor or role model, a parent role model, people that you can really look up to for behavioral inspiration. And by behavioral, I mean that they walk the walk. There's a lot of people that talk big and, they purport themselves to be role models or experts, but in a lot of cases, it's just a lot of talk. So there's a couple of behavioral role models that I try to look at. One of them, personally, professionally, is a friend of mine, Dr. Jim Klein. And Jim was an FDNY firefighter when he taught in the bachelor's degree where I went to school in Jersey City. He later went on to become a lieutenant in 10 Engine at the Trade Center. Then he became a captain in 224 in Brooklyn. And he retired from Engine 167 over in Staten Island. And Jim encouraged many of us to pursue higher education. And later, Jim and I started a company to help firefighters and officers prepare for promotional exams in New York and New York City and in New Jersey. And we also had courses to prepare people for entrance exams in New Jersey and New York City. And I learned a lot about management and vision and patience from Jim. Of course, in life and in jobs and things like that, we have some tough days. And, a lot of times you'll be criticized for things that you're doing or not doing or trying to do or can't do. And when those kinds of days come up to me, I look to whomever is the president and realize that whatever crisis we're facing in the fire administration, that whoever's the president is facing like 20 times tougher decisions, and everything that person does is in the press and in the public. And all of a sudden, your crisis or the big deal that you're dealing with does seem small in comparison. My current boss, Chief Ernie Mitchell, is a pretty inspiring guy. He's got a great logic and thoroughness about him. It's really difficult to put my finger on it, but he brings a perspective to the government that I haven't really seen before. He was a fire chief in several California fire departments. He served as a union president. He was the president of the International Association of Fire Chiefs, and the President Obama appointed him as the U.S. Fire Administrator. He's really a good guy. And a similar boss, the previous boss I had was Dave Paulison, who went up through the ranks down in Miami-Dade, Florida. He did a similar path, chief of the department, president of the International Association of Fire Chiefs, and then fire administrator. But he later became the FEMA director after Hurricane Katrina debacle where Mike Brown was fired. And he came in and really picked up the pieces in FEMA and put us back together again. And I think he's really an unsung hero in the fire service. And then probably one of the more amazing guys I've ever met in government is Craig Fugate, the FEMA administrator, and who was a volunteer firefighter down in Florida. And this guy drips talent from his fingernails. He just has the ability to communicate in very small, simple sentences and just kind of pound you over the head with it. One of the examples I like to talk about is, the federal government is constantly cutting budgets and trying to save money. And one of the ways that they're trying to do that now is to reduce office space. So FEMA had several places where they were renting office space around the city, and they wanted to consolidate it all into one building, which meant that the offices are going to be crowded, people are going to be teleworking and doing these kinds of things. And of course, no one likes change. People, they like change for everybody else, but they don't like change for themselves. So people were complaining and who was whining, the drill.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so on a conference call with the senior managers, he said, look, we're getting our budget cut, and this is about reducing costs, and we have to save money. He said, this is what he said, I'm going to take your copiers away before I lay anyone off. I went, okay, message received. You didn't have to really say any more than that. So there's been quite a few different people in my life that have served as a role model and an inspiration, and I'd recommend that to others as well.
Right. That's amazing. You know what? Those are the people I'd pick.
Yeah.
Well, I was just happy, with my senior man, but that's. I guess your broadness of potential role models is a lot larger than mine.
Well, pay attention. I'll tell you what. They're all very, very down to earth people. You could pick up the phone and talk to them. I know you don't believe that, or people listening to this might not believe that, but we're all, as they say, we put our pants on the same one leg at a time. We started the same place. We're going to wind up in the same place. And most of the people that you meet, particularly in the fire and emergency services, are men and women who just want to help.
Right.
And they're very, very down to earth.
This is again, Bobby. Tell us about a project or an accomplishment that you consider to be the most significant in your whole career. Like, it's got to be tough.
Yeah. Probably the big one, Bobby, is the professional development of the fire and emergency services. And I started this soon after I became the superintendent of the fire academy. I started to look at other professions, nursing, medicine, law, and try to figure out what it was that they did that brought them to professional status. How did, 150 years ago, doctors were apprentices. I mean, they went around and followed the high-end doctors, the surgeons went to medical school, but the average doctor with a brown bag or black bag going around, there was no medical school for them. They apprenticed. And everyone knows that Abraham Lincoln was an attorney, but no one knows that he didn't go to law school. He apprenticed to be a lawyer. And if you look at nursing in the all of these formerly occupations and what was the process that became professions.
Yeah.
And there were four. There's education, there's training, there's experience, and there's continuing education. So we kind of started here at the Fire Academy laying out the education, the training, the experience, and the continuing education pieces, and we've managed to get all of them together. And now it's a process of building. So we worked with, I think it's now 96 colleges and universities around the country to standardize a fire degree. So there's a standard 2-year degree, a standard 4-year degree, and all of the book publishers, the fire textbook publishers, now publish to those standard curriculums. The syllabi are all the same. On the training piece, we already have standards for firefighter 1, 2, 3. We have hazmat tech 1 through 4. We have fire officer. We have fire investigator. We have fire inspector, fire officer. So those are the training pieces. So there's an education, there's a training piece. The experience piece is taking your education and your training and applying those to new or existing problems. And then, of course, the continuing education is the kind of things that we all hopefully everyone will do: attending seminars, reading magazines, keeping up with the latest in the technology through the job. And if you look at, medicine, everyone knows that it's a 4-year, you go to college, then you go to medical school for 4 years. But even medical school is mostly training. It's 2 years of classroom work and 2 years of walking around doing apprenticeship with doctors. They call it the rounds, all right? And they go around and they interview patients and learn about the practice of medicine, nursing, law. You can graduate law school, but you can't appear in a court. You have to go to training. So that is what we do. We have an education piece now. We have a training piece. And in terms of accomplishments, that's been probably a 15-year or so project. But if I was to look back on what we've accomplished, and a lot of people were a part of that process, that would be it for the fire service. And now what we need to be doing now is, and you're seeing it, to get advancement. For example, even in the New York City Fire Department, your own department, you need a certain amount of college credits to study for the lieutenant's exam and the captain's exam. And then I think it's the chief's exam, you need a bachelor's degree, and they're requiring that. And I was just talking to a friend, I don't want to mention the town, but it's a real small town in Colorado. And they were looking for a deputy fire chief. And the 4 final candidates all had master's degrees, fire experience. So you see that the men and women who are leading our profession are more and more becoming educated.
That's good.
So it's great.
Yeah, that's all.
All right. So on a more serious note, what would be your superpower? I'll tell you the truth. The superpowers that the three of us have are growing up in a place like Jersey City and New York City, where you have a mix of cultures and races. I went to high school up in the Harlem section in New York City, up on 24th and Lenox, up in Rice. That was the name of the high school, Rice. And then about a year later, I got drafted into the Army, and I was attached to the Korean Marines up on the DMZ as an English-speaking radio operator. And then I went into the fire department in some pretty tough neighborhoods. And then when I was an officer, we had 3 IAFF locals in Jersey City, and they all had binding arbitration. And I was on the executive board for 2 of those 3 unions. And all of those kinds of experiences give you the ability to read people very quickly, to figure out how to get along with them, to figure out what their motivations are, and really to get done what you have to get done. Of course, when you're growing up in a city like that, you learn pretty quickly that no matter how tough you are or how tough you think you are, that there's always somebody tougher than you. And as you mature and you put down your fists and you start working with your brain a little bit, you learn that there's always somebody bigger or more powerful or smarter than you. And you've got to figure out how to deal with these people to get done what you are trying to get done. And I've always felt that there are 2 ways that you can learn things. One is there's really 2 ways. One is the hard way. The other one is the easy way. The hard way is to try to do things on your own, to purport that you're the smartest one, that you know the right way to do things, and you always get punished for that. And the tuition is very high. And I've always learned. I tried to learn from the mistakes of others. So I'll watch people and I'll say, well, that didn't go well. And I call that going on a scholarship. So you can either pay the tuition and learn the hard way, or you can go on a scholarship and learn from somebody else's mistakes. Okay. And so that would kind of be the superpower. With that being said, what was your largest tuition bill when it came to learning and experience? What was the time that you put yourself out there and just either it went so bad that you made a fool of yourself, or it was just one of those like embarrassing life lessons. We all have them. You've got to have a really high tuition bill.
Yeah. I was a captain, and we had a fire in a 3-story tenement. It was attached on both sides, which was typical of the housing in this one section of the city. And I was in a ladder company, so I'm sure it's the same SOP in New York City. First do ladder company, forces entry for the engine company. Second do ladder company, ladders the building next door, goes to the roof, goes over to the roof next door, vents the roof, checks the backyard for jumpers, and goes down the fire escape and does a search on the top floor, and then does a search on the second floor down, wherever the fire is, the floor above the fire.
Okay.
The easiest way in those tenement buildings is to go, instead of laddering the roof, you go up the stairway to the roof next door,
right,
and you walk across the roofs. So we walked across the roofs, checked the vent, go down the gooseneck into the top floor apartment, and I get on the floor, and the 3 firefighters that were with me, we start doing a search. And the last firefighter in, as he's climbing in the window, I guess he forced the fire escape out with his foot. And the fire escape fell off the back of the building. So the only way we had, well, just the top, the one that was at our window fell off, not the whole fire escape, but just that one. So now, as we're crawling in, the only way out of the building, of course, is the stairwell, which is on fire. And they radioed us. I heard over the radio that the kids had stuffed balls in the fire hydrant, and they lost water.
Oh.
So now the engine company lost water. And I remember talking to myself on my mask. I said, well, this doctorate's really going to come in handy now, because we had no way out of no water. Anyway, so the fire, wow. They did a great job. The second line came in, put the fire out. We got everything under control. Sarge got everything. And so I go out, and the battalion chief rips me a new one in public in front of my crew, okay? And so I learned there, that was a public embarrassment, and I learned there that you never, ever criticize anybody in public. And this battalion chief had a reputation for doing this. I wasn't alone. It wasn't the first time he'd done it, and everybody in the battalion understood what we were dealing with. And but that is a lesson that I've carried with me my entire life. And every once in a while, you got to talk to somebody and help them understand that their behavior or their performance needs a little tune-up. And I've always done that in public. I'm sorry, always done that in private, and I've only praised in public.
Praise in private,
yeah. And I was talking to a man that I worked with not too long ago, and we were talking about this particular chief. And there was a man told me, he said he used to check the obituaries every day looking for this guy's name. And I said I wasn't the only one. So,
that really, you know what, I've had that, and those type of people are very difficult to interact with. The people that
they're insecure.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like they need to show that they know more or something to that effect, and it's not palatable.
They think that with each bugle they acquire knowledge.
Yes,
right.
Yes, exactly. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Hazmat Guys. Thanks for taking a little bit of your day to listen to us and hopefully make your job a little bit easier. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at the Hazmat Guys, and please take a moment to go to iTunes and put a review of our podcast, or you can call the comment hotline, which is 843-628-1484. And if you don't know this, we are now recording the show live, and we do it unedited on YouTube every week. So find us on Google Plus or even the YouTube channel, and just subscribe to us, and you'll be notified when the show starts. So if that's what you're into, then by all means. We also look forward to your feedback and information about incidents or interesting stuff that you were part of. So please give us a note at feedback@thehazmatguys.com. Remember, guys, don't just get on the job, get into the job.